survived 500 days in my Satisfactory 1.0 world. Today, we'll be touring everything we've built, from the organized chaos of my starter factory to the skyscrapers of the Southern Lakes. I hope you go on to enjoy the tour because we have a lot to see. So far in our world, we've got 7 key locations of things that I've built so far. The first of which being our starter factory over in the Dune Desert, my favorite biome in Satisfactory. This is what the Dune Desert looked like before I started building my starter factory. And this is what it looks like now. The first word that comes to mind is chaos, and I suppose it is. But at the same time, everything has a purpose going into a certain location. So I would much prefer to call it organized chaos. Let's begin where it all started. The hub. Other than painting this thing chrome, it hasn't really changed much over the last few months. However, originally, of course, it was not built on concrete foundations, it was built purely on the sand, which, if I remember correctly, is not too far underneath this thing. There you go, it's right there. So, if anything, I think this is actually the original foundation it was built on, then I moved it upwards a little bit, but of course, before the foundation, this is where it sat. So really, this has not changed whatsoever, just got a bit of an upgrade to make it look a little bit less crap. Moving on, of course, we have got the space elevator, and this will be moving sometime throughout this playthrough. I don't know when, and I don't know where just yet. Moving on now to our main plaza. This is normally where I have things like Christmas trees, or sometimes I'll have smelters and foundries if I'm doing some in-game calculations. But essentially, this is a nice open area where I just get to imagine, think, and be a bit creative, which I do love. Not to mention it's very close to our hub and a couple other areas we now have to talk about, including our main MAM and awesome shop area. I do love the layers of this factory. For example, you can go up here and then you've got your blueprint where you can design some stuff. You've then got the layer underneath there for your MAM, and then you have got this, and I know some people hate this, but it's my storage area, one of my storage areas, but this is definitely the main one. And essentially, I've got a color coding system. So if something here is black, it means it's empty. If it's gold, it means it's got something in it. Of course, we've got tons of room over here for expansion if need so. But if I ever need anything, I know I've got it here, which is brilliant. If it's your first time seeing this, I can understand why it might look a bit chaotic. But again, I've got 500 days playtime, and this has been here for a good couple hundred of them at least. So I've memorized where everything is, so for me, it's very easy to sort through. But this is not the only storage area I've got. Not at all. Of course, eventually, I'm going to be adding a bunch of dimensional depots when I fully automate all of these items here. But as of right now, this just does what I need it to. Whilst we're in this area, let's talk about the obvious. No, not just yet. Let's talk about the Caterium. And you might be thinking, why are there so many... Can I land this? Yes. Why are there so many red lights everywhere? Well, essentially, I made a calculation error. Now, of course, I fixed it. But I've left this here as a reminder of what can happen when I get my maths wrong. So this is like a self-punishment in a way. So now let's get onto the real cluster of this location over here, which might not look like it, but I promise all makes sense. And this is to make our reinforced iron plates. Just look at it, it is an absolute beauty. Eventually, our reinforced iron plates then come around over there to make our smart plating. But of course, to make our smart plating, we need one more thing. Rotors. And this is where all of our rotors are being made. And essentially, I've got thousands of rotors, reinforced iron plates, and smart splitters all over the place, which is plenty for what I need. And don't worry, yes, I'll be talking about this conveyor belt highway in just a moment. We've also got our main copper area over here as well, which is making copper sheets, wire, and cable. I made this pretty early on in regards to the playthrough, and since then I have never, not even once, had to worry about wire, cable, or copper sheets for like the last 490 days. It is remarkable. And that is literally everything in this area, except for one thing, which a lot of you have never even seen before, even if you've been watching my channel for several months now, and that is our biomass production facility. So why have I kept this here if it doesn't even do anything? Well, simply put, it has done a lot for me in the past, and I want to keep it here just to remind myself of what we started from. Everything that you see on screen now is essentially just making core products. For example, steel ingots and steel pipes. 95% of these steel pipes then come down over here to make our encased industrial beams, but of course I'm using the encased industrial pipe alternate recipe. Now, I am using a couple alternate recipes in this factory, but because some of it was started on, well, very early on in the game, I hadn't unlocked too many alternate recipes. So that is definitely one thing I'll be changing in the future, is, well, using much better recipes. Every now and then, I like to stand in a location just like this and just admire how awesome this thing looks, because I absolutely love it. Of course, to get all of our materials for our core and other things here as well, we've had to build two pretty big conveyor belt highways. This one goes left and right, and this one over here only really goes up to roughly this point over here. There are also some core nodes over there, but as you can see in the distance, I have other plans for that core, as we'll get onto in just a moment's time. And essentially everything else that you see here is making things like computers, heavy modular frames, adaptive control units, modular engines. We've also got ourselves some supercomputers, obviously meaning we are making rubber and plastic, and this is exactly where we are doing it. Right next to the Caterium that I was showing you a bit earlier on, we get a bunch of crude oil coming in from a station over there. It then comes around there, a very short trip luckily. We convert all of that crude oil into fuel, and the fuel into, well, power. As a byproduct from the fuel, again, we managed to make our polymer resin, which then makes our plastic and rubber, of which we have got tens of thousands of stored up. And of course, this is update 1.0, so I do have to make some 1.0 related items. And I believe we are making SAM fluctuators, I believe they're called. I am doing absolutely nothing involving them just yet, so I'm just syncing them. But they're a very good item to sync. You do get quite a lot of points, so I do recommend doing this early on. Or even if you can't afford that, just do the reanimated SAM, which is literally just SAM put into a constructor. Very easy way to get points. Final thing that I want to show you is this, and this area right here, despite only having a Mark 1 blueprint designer, is where I have filmed a couple of my blueprint themed videos. And this essentially is where I make my modular factories. So things like reinforced iron plates, I have iron going in and then reinforced iron plates coming out. It is absolutely remarkable, and yeah, this is where I filmed it. Hence why you can see floor 1, floor 2 and floor 3. This is where I essentially disassemble everything to show the viewers, you lot, exactly what I do. I did originally have another area for this, but when I woke up one day, it all got mysteriously deleted. I don't know how, but my progress didn't save, so I had to redo all of this, and it doesn't quite look as good, which I kind of did on purpose, because this was always supposed to be a temporary design. As you can see in the background, we've got not just one, not just two, but 3 of our modular factory designs. We've also got something else. That concludes our tour of our starter factory. Now let's move on to what I like to call the FICSMAS Nightmare. You're about to see why I call it that. Starting off with this area right here, which is originally where I made the majority of my FICSMAS products, but of course I'm recording this after January the 18th, so the FICSMAS event has ended. Despite the event having ended, I don't actually want to get rid of my FICSMAS factory, because I don't necessarily hate the way it looks from the outside. And I say that because look at this, I just love the approach and the entrance to this thing, but there's also another way you can get in here. And that is from this side entrance along here. Well, it turns out every single thing I've designed in this circle is not symmetrical, and it made this part of the build so freaking annoying to do. I don't mind the way it looks, and you can't really notice it unless you pay too much attention, but that really made this project a bit of a nightmare. Speaking of nightmares, let's enter the actual main factory itself. And again, the actual approach of this I do quite like. You got our main FICSMAS door over there. Oh, I'm getting like 1 frame per second. We've also got our candy canes there, flanking us on both sides. And then of course you've got our main factory in here. I hate this. I really, really do hate this. Because again, from the outside it doesn't look too bad. I like the trees and everything. I like the idea of it being next to the waterfall. That's grand, that's fine. But the actual positioning of the factory itself, I don't like. It looks very chaotic, it doesn't look organized, and it doesn't look neat. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on myself, because again, I don't mind the way it looks from the outside. It's a very unique and very different design to what I normally do, but I would never do something like this again, unless I did a bit more planning beforehand, because yeah, chaotic doesn't even begin to describe it. Now let's talk about something a bit different, and that is power. How did I manage to power my starter factory before I had my fuel? Well, that leads us on to our third build. This right here is our main core facility. There's a main entrance there around the front. However, if I time this right, damn it, there is also another entrance right here around the back. And this is probably the first thing that I've built in Satisfactory where I truly felt proud. And I love this thing. I really freaking do. Everything from the way it looks to the lighting to how organized it is, it's just my idea of a perfect factory. In total, I believe there's 102 core generators. I might be wrong. I've done several streams and videos about this, so I'm sure I'll correct myself somewhere down the line. And despite at first glance everything looking nice and neat, in reality, it's actually really not. So let's show you what the logistics looks like to run a factory of this size. As you can see from this point of view, it goes on a very, very, very long way. You can just about see the end there if I scroll to the maximum zoom distance. But yeah, this is essentially hundreds of mergers, splitters, pipeline pumps, and everything. So you might be thinking, water must be a problem here. Well, I thought of a very simple but rather good solution to that. And that is, have our water extractors literally right next to our core generators. Yes, don't worry, I will fill in this hole. There we go, perfect, just like I was never even here. Despite this build now being a good few hundred days old, I'm still proud of it. I really hope that I can replicate something like this throughout my playthrough series. I wasn't a very big fan of this copper color that I've used, but I still wanted to commit to it. It's a color that I've obviously never used before because it was never in the game prior to 1.0. So I wanted to use it, and I wanted it to feel a bit unique and a bit different. I suppose you can say it most certainly does. I've also added this entrance over here as well, which again leads us into the front entrance of the core facility. We've also done this little pipe trick underneath here, which makes it look like I'm getting the water from underneath the sea itself, rather than from the water extractors, which I actually quite like. This isn't the biggest project I've done in this world, but it's the one I'm most proud of. However, now it's time to move on to the next project. And this little red square down here was the start of about 300 days worth of pain. But anyway, how are we gonna get there? Well, I was thinking about traveling by style. That is right, another hypertube cannon where you get a more interesting view of our starter factory. My PC's about to die, someone sent help. And this is where it all begins. Right here in the blue crater lake, which is a crater lake that is blue. It is also a lake in a crater that just so happens to be blue. Hence why it's called the Blue Crater Lake. This unfinished project collects a bunch of sulfur from that angle, coal from over there, and then crude oil from just beyond yonder. It then puts it into whatever the hell I tried to design here, some sort of like, I don't know, it's not really an oil rig, but that's sort of like the inspiration I had. This is where we make thousands of compact coal. And this is also where we package the rest of our crude oil. Why are you yellow? Why are you yellow? Oh, that's a bit of a shame. Oh, well, don't care. I probably should, shouldn't I? Here we are packaging an absolute ton of crude oil. And then up here, up here we've got our trains, which go all the way around the map on a path which I haven't yet finished. Again, it's unfinished, this area. It goes all the way around the map to our next facility. So let's take a very quick train ride to show you where we are going. Hello, this is the Valhalla Pickle from the future. Unfortunately, the song I was going to use here got copyright claimed, so instead, I'm going to sing Welcome to the Black Parade. Just like that, we have arrived to our train station. Did I go a bit over the top of the train station? Yeah, probably. But I like the way it looks regardless. The area that we're in right now is right below here. This is the biggest project I've been working on so far in my 1.0 playthrough. This is our rocket fuel factory. So let's begin where it all began. Right over here. This is the very first train station that I've built, but it looks massively different than what it first looked like about 2.5 months ago. For more information on why this looks the way it does, please do check out a video I released quite recently that you'll currently see on screen. This is the main entrance to the project. You can just see the train leaving there, but this is where our compact coal and our crude oil comes in. This train won't stop here, don't worry. Yeah, this is where our compact coal and our crude oil come in. I just realized I didn't even finish building this wall. There we go, done, no one saw that. And underneath our train station, all of this packaged crude oil, of course including our compact coal, goes wherever it needs to go in our Satisfactory world. I've also built a couple weird things like this underneath our main train station, which doesn't serve any purpose, but it uses up the space quite nicely. I've also built some sort of weird tunnel along here, which, again, don't know why. And then down here, I've built this area, which has a crafting bench. That's the one, a crafting bench. These are parts of my world that you're never ever going to see ever again. And even though this part of the build faces this side of the map, which I'm never ever going to build on, I still wanted to make it look quite nice. So after our crude oil comes in through here, it then comes into this facility right here, which is the first proper building that I actually built in this entire area. This is where our crude oil essentially gets unpackaged. This took ages to do, even though it looks extremely simple, but I won't be showing it as of right now because there's not really too much to see. Now with this train station over here though, there's a little bit more to see. Of course we've got our main train station there. We've also got this small area down here as well, which currently serves no purpose. On the other side, we have this, which is essentially everything that I'm ever going to need that I can just very quickly craft here. Let's say, for example, I need portable miners. There you go. I can make 250 just like that. And what? In fact, I can actually make thousands because of my dimensional depot. But either way, this is a fantastic way to do it. Again, we've got the awesome shop there as well, and the MAM, just in case I do need that as well. So it's good that we have got these areas just dotted all over the map. For the most part, the train station is the exact same. This right here is the start of our rocket fuel factory. Now let's talk about this weird looking building, which is for the heavy oil residue. Crude oil comes in through there, it goes underneath here, and then it goes over here to these industrial buffers, I believe that they're called. Just so I can store some crude oil here, just in case I need it there for the future. Then after my game lags a little bit, it then goes into all of these refineries right here. Some of them appear to be yellow. That's because we've got too much heavy oil residue being produced, which is not really a problem at all. I've also tried to make this area look as nice as possible. I do struggle with the roof designs in my Satisfactory worlds, and I'm kind of happy with this here as well, because we've got this side of the room, which again has this nice open ceiling. We then have this middle part along here, which has a much shorter or more compact sort of feeling, I would say, rather than shorter, but there you go. And then again on this side, you have the exact same as what we saw previously. Of course, with all of our logistics being visible underneath the floor there as well, which sorts out all of our power, heavy oil residue, and crude oil. Of course, not forgetting about one thing though, and that's polymer resin. Final thing that I built up here, which is a building which I'm not necessarily extremely proud of, but we've got a bunch of batteries in there that just give us a bunch of power storage, which I quite like. Essentially, that's our heavy oil residue factory. It sounds very simple, but it did take, I think, like 5 or 6 days to build, but I think it is worth it in the end. Moving on though, we now have this cluster of buildings, and at first glance, it might not look too special, and that's because it's not, but logistically, I overcomplicated this massively. Like, it's actually unbelievable. So our polymer resin comes in through there. It then goes underneath here to our main entrance, then splits left or right. Or straight as well, but which again eventually goes either left or right anyway. This is where all of our refineries combine our water, which we're getting from out there, and our polymer resin to make plastic. This is where things start to go from decent to pretty stupid. Essentially right here we've got a bunch of plastic which is being produced and a bit of extra polymer resin which some of our refineries just can't process. So I've designed this. All our extra polymer resin comes around there, which then gets sunk. All of our plastic goes up to our drone ports. Because the original plan, as you can see, is we've got an absolute ton of drone ports that we're supposed to go all over the map to deliver our plastic. The problem is the amount of fuel and power this would require for the drones just didn't make this project worth it at all. So instead now, all of our plastic comes up here. It then goes all the way down to the middle, just like so, and then it leaves this facility right here from this drone, which goes somewhere off to the distance, which I'll show you in just a moment's time. This concrete path along there is where we were literally just walking a couple minutes ago. Underneath here, we then have one more logistic floor, and underneath that, we then have another logistics floor. And I can essentially summarize everything we've done in this one area over here. Our polymer resin combines with our water, which comes in through there, to again make all of our plastic. This took maybe like 10-15 days to build. It was a bit of a painful process. I realize today's video is dragging on a little bit, so I won't spend too long talking about these next parts. Firstly, we've got this area over here, which is making all of our fuel, combining water and heavy oil residue. This is called diluted fuel, and it's absolutely fantastic. Moving on from there, we've got some packages which combines the plastic that we saw earlier, turns it into canisters, then produces packaged fuel, which then fuels all of our drones. This is because we are making turbo fuel. This turbo fuel then combines with nitrogen, which we're getting from somewhere behind over there, with some iron as well, to make our rocket fuel. Our rocket fuel then produces a bunch of power. But as you can see, we've got a train station here. Well, why? That's because there's still thousands of fuel that we're not using. So now what we're doing with the fuel is that we're transporting it all across the world over the Spire Coast. Which leads us onto our next factory, our plastic, rubber and petroleum coke facility. It's also important for me to say as well, the area that I've just shown you, the rocket fuel factory, is nowhere near finished. I want to decorate all the buildings, make sure everything looks nice and neat, fix a few mistakes here and there. So yeah, it is definitely not complete. However, speaking about another area that's definitely not complete, we've again got our plastic, rubber and petroleum coke facility. And that's because we still have to add a few more drone ports and some other things here as well. But this is what it looks like for now. The first thing that you'll see is this train station over there. This train station gets our crude oil coming in from this part of the Spire Coast over there. This train station hasn't really been heavily decorated, but I'll give it a tour in just a moment. Additionally, we've got these two trains here, which give us all of our packaged fuel coming in through here, and then this other train then brings all of our canisters background over there as well, so there is a purpose to it. Furthermore, we then have this area over here, where our crude oil gets unpackaged underneath here. This area down here, which took me, again, so long to do. Well, as of right now, at least, it works perfectly for what I need it to do, which is fantastic. These plans might take a while, but I do love it when a plan comes together. And do you remember that FICSMAS tunnel that I showed you a bit earlier on today? Well, I've replicated it and reused it in this area over here, because I really like the design. And this, again, I want to reiterate, is not a finished project. I've still got a lot more to build, a couple things to fix here and there, but for the most part, logistically at least, it is done. So what we are doing over here is converting our fuel into heavy oil residue, and rubber, I believe, as well. The rubber then goes to make plastic. The plastic then makes rubber. The rubber then makes plastic, and some of the plastic then makes rubber. I know it's a very weird and rather painful process, but it's very, very efficient. So I kind of love it for that reason. From the heavy oil residue that we're actually getting as a byproduct from all that rubber, we're then turning that into petroleum coke, as you can see. The petroleum coke then goes into this train station down here, where it then gets transported miles in the distance for our 7th and final factory. But before I show you that, let me show you our other train station, because I've got about 15 billion train stations in this playthrough. Why have I done this to myself? This is where the journey begins, right next to our other train stations over there. As you can see here, we have got a lot of trains on the move, but it does exactly what I need it to. Speaking about trains, our one's just arrived. This is carrying all of our crude oil. Now, normally in SATISFACTORY, when it comes to transporting liquids, I always try and turn it into a solid first. This makes transporting so much easier. So, why haven't I done it with this train? Well, there's a very short answer to that. The route in which the crude oil is traveling is just not really worth to package it, turn it into a solid, then to unpackage it, since there's a massive waste of power and it is just so close by. In fact, here's the train station. It is literally that close. So why did I want to just pump all the crude oil from there to there? Well, I like trains. At least I like the look of trains. And again, this factory hasn't yet been finished. I don't know what I'm going to add here eventually, but this is our last train station. Or is it? No, it's not. There's still tons more to go. Logistics. Now, the very final factory we have that I've literally only just started to work on, but I still want to show it, is our Aluminium Factory, and there's almost nothing here. How on earth do we get to our Aluminium Factory, one may be asking themselves. If only there was like a hypertube cannon. There is a hypertube cannon. Oh, nice. This is excellent gameplay. And here it is, our Aluminium Factory. I'm actually in the process of redesigning the actual train entrance, but do you remember the petroleum coke? Oh, this is perfect timing. This is actually completely unscripted, but do you remember that petroleum coke I was talking about a minute earlier? Well, this is where our petroleum coke actually comes to, through this train right here. And this train comes here one in every, I think it's 4.5 or 6.5 minutes. So the fact I was able to catch that is kind of funny, but essentially what the redesign is is I'm actually increasing the height of this underground station from that height to this height, so I can make it look a little bit nicer. I also want to try and add some lights along the ceiling here as well. But in case this looks a little bit hideous, don't worry, because the actual foundation and the main floor to our factory is this height. So everything below here isn't going to be used for much. Maybe some like conveyor belt logistics, but nothing too complex. No machine parts, nothing like that. Again, maybe some pipes and some conveyor belt parts. Yeah, we have got a very quick redesign going on. However, this is the main underground station itself. And again, you might be thinking, why is it underground? You have to bear in mind, this will be the ground level. So everything underneath this will appear to be below the ground level, which is the reason why I wanted to try and do this. I've never really built an underground station before, so I was like, yeah, why not? And this is now what we've got. I've literally only just finished building this though. I have no idea when this video is going to come out, but the video that's currently on the screen was just finished being recorded and edited a couple of days ago, so I haven't done much progress since then, obviously. This middle station right here is for the petroleum coke, whereas these two stations over here are for the bauxite. But again, for more information on why I've built this here and how I built this, then I do recommend checking out that video I was just talking a little bit about earlier on. That right there is 500 days worth of Satisfactory. It doesn't seem like a lot of work, and that's because off camera I've been doing a lot of things as well. Things like logistics, making sure everything's working, building some other stuff that of course I didn't really talk about too much today, mostly to do with the starter factory. So yes, this is 500 days worth of Satisfactory, but we are only just getting started. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching. Before we go, a massive thank you to our channel members: The Bearded Cobra, Jao, Variants, Nicole Still Plays, Asuna, Natormal, Yummy Kill Burns, Chaos Rising, Scott and Hattie, and Mau Mau. If you decide to become a Knight of the Realm for just £2.99 a month, you get access to channel-only emotes, unique badges, and also shoutouts in videos. Memberships are the best way to support my channel, but you don't have to become a member. Even just by watching today's video, you are supporting the channel massively. Here's a couple more videos I've made that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Have an amazing rest of your day, and remember, Godspeed.